In this video, we're coming off a major tornado outbreak over the last couple of days. In fact, we've had 278 tornado warnings issued by the National Weather Service. Fortunately, that event is starting to wind down, but unfortunately, it looks to ramp back up even as early as tomorrow and looks like several days of more severe storms as it looks to remain active actually for the rest of the week. So, we're going to break down the details for you in this update. Taking a look at the latest satellite picture, there is our area of low pressure center highlighted across the Dakotas. That will be lifting out northeast. We do have a convective complex that blew up in the overnight hours in this morning for those areas down southeast Texas or along the coast into Louisiana. They were having inundated, a lot of lightning strikes, several tornado warnings down there, and flash flooding, numerous flash flooding, 3 to 6 inches widespread. Some of those areas actually picked up even more than that. So if we continue to move across for the rest of the day, you can see that convective complex starting to wind down, but it's still going to leave a lot of heavier rains in its wake as well as it moves through portions of Louisiana, back into Arkansas, and there into western Kentucky, portions of Indiana, and that will continue to push off to the east and kind of fizzle out as we head into Tuesday morning. But look what happens across the middle of the country. Yes, that is another area of low pressure center is going to form across those areas across the plains. And as we get into the heat of the afternoon, likely around 4, 5, 6 o'clock, we are going to be seeing a convective complex starting to blow up again with a renewed threat of severe storms across areas of Iowa. And that will continue to move out to areas of Chicago, start to wind down into Wednesday morning. But another area of low pressure center forming along the dry line here, areas of Kansas, back into Oklahoma, back in for those areas into western Texas. That's going to be a renewed threat for more severe storms as we head into Wednesday. So if we break this thing down for you, here is the latest update from the Storm Prediction Center. We do, in fact, have yet another slight risk for severe storms across those areas into Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, as well as in portions of Missouri. And then further south, more of a marginal threat as we are going to be seeing some storms form along that dry line. But as we move through, the greatest risk where you could possibly see some tornadoes is within that area across Iowa, unfortunately into eastern Nebraska, those areas and portions of southern Minnesota. It's going to be likely after 4 o'clock. It's late afternoon into the evening event. And as we head into Wednesday, I think it drops a little bit further south because another area of low pressure center will be moving in. We are going to get the dry line start to get activated again. And just east of there, that's where mainly the severe threat will likely be across Kansas, western Oklahoma, far west, northwest portions of Texas, and then just a marginal risk as you swing further south and into portions of central and north Texas. But your greatest risk, the greatest probability to have some of that larger hail, so that more of that significant hail, that 2-inch in diameter type hail, and we saw a lot of that over the last couple of days. Unfortunately, we are going to be seeing, this is not nearly going to be the big event like we saw last week, but we are going to be seeing several days of severe storms, and this is what it's going to look like on Wednesday. We're going to have to watch out again those areas into the late afternoon, into the early evening time frame for back into Kansas, western Oklahoma, far northwest portions of Texas there. That's where they could be seeing a renewed tornado threat and that large hail threat and a more of a damaging wind threat as that squall line would likely weaken as it pushes more to the southeast. So if we break it down for you over the next 48 hours. So here's the convective complex on some of the high resolution guidance. You can see all these reds and the deep yellows here. That is indicative of very heavy rain that's unloading across Louisiana this morning. And of course, lighter amounts further north into Minnesota and Wisconsin, back into Michigan, as that area of low pressure center will continue to weaken. But it's mainly going to be along the south, where along the coast is you're going to be seeing some heavier rains as we head into this afternoon. And that will likely spread into western Tennessee, those areas into western Kentucky, back into areas of Indiana as we head into this afternoon, get into night. And this is what it looked like in the overnight hours as we head into, say, 3 o'clock in the morning, right there in central Tennessee, central Kentucky, back into Ohio. Not severe, but definitely some stronger thunderstorms with a lot of lightning going to be associated with that activity. And as we move through, now we're going to be looking at this area of low pressure center blowing up another convective complex across those areas of Minnesota, back into Iowa. That's where they have that severe threat. And we're going to start to see little isolated supercell thunderstorms start to bubble up along this line. That's why we have that severe threat. And it's going to be taking place, sometime probably after the 4 o'clock time frame into the evening. You can see the isolated nature of these supercells. That's what makes them more discrete and then turning possibly more severe without some of that larger hail potential and some spin up tornadoes, especially there into Iowa, as we head into Tuesday night. And then going through into, that'll take you through all the way into Wednesday morning. So if we take a look at the overall wind aspect, for the next 48 hours, it's going to be windy, right? I mean, April is a windy month. So as we have multiple vortices moving across, multiple convective complexes, multiple systems that will be moving in, we are going to be seeing some heavier winds. You can see it on the map here. Those areas into green. This is outside of the severe risk. We're still going to get wide areas of 40, 45, maybe some 50-mile-per-hour wind gust, within this sector. But as we take into Wednesday, I think it just remains high. So let's look at some of the instability the atmosphere definitely has to work with. So these areas across the central and southern plains are going to be remaining active because you're going to have a lot of instability in the atmosphere as these little short waves do come across. So I feel as we head into Wednesday afternoon, there it is. We got more instability pulling in from Texas through Oklahoma and back into Kansas. And then the dry line would likely get activated again into the heat of the afternoon. And that will set the stage for a renewed threat for more severe storms on Wednesday. And then that's the same thing, I think, what happens on Thursday, as we're going to be watching a cold front come in from the northwest. So there's your kind of a gradient to where the cold front will likely be. I would say cool front, essentially. And that puts all this area across into the warm sector, further south into Texas, back into Kansas, back into areas of Oklahoma again. That will likely lead to a very heavy rain setup as well. And some of those could turn severe for Oklahoma as well as into Texas. And then as we move through Friday, I think it continues to remain unsettled. You might have a little bit of a lull for at least for one day, but you can see where that cold front will be draping across this areas across Oklahoma. At some point, it's going to stall out, likely into sometime on Saturday, and we're going to have another disturbance moving in from the west, tapping into that instability, and that would likely lead to possibly more severe storms across Texas and some very heavy rain moving back in the picture as well during the day on Saturday. And I think it continues to remain unsettled for those areas across the south, as the instability will continue to remain high even into that, going into that Sunday time frame. So if we look at some of the lightning strikes and where the instability and where the greatest lift and where the greatest supercell thunderstorms will likely be, starting on Wednesday, there's the dry line, right? So it starts to set up across western Texas, western Oklahoma, western Kansas, and that convective complex will initiate the atmosphere and unload supercell thunderstorms and very heavy rain with this event. I mean, the water content values are going to be over 1.5 to 2 inch per hour rainfall rates at times. We'll likely have some flash flooding for those areas across the south. But notice a lot of instability stays really highlighted across the center part of the country. as that's where mainly these activities, these areas of low pressure center will be setting up shop. And I think it continues to remain unsettled even into Thursday, and that would likely lead to a very heavy rainfall event as well. Right now, the Weather Prediction Center does have a slight risk for excessive rainfall, essentially from Texas all the way to Oklahoma, through Arkansas, into Missouri, all the way back into Iowa again, swinging up into Minnesota, into Wisconsin. This whole area would likely be inundated with very heavy rain during the day on Thursday, and some of those actually could turn severe along that boundary as well. And I think it continues to remain active even going into Friday. So here's your Friday setup as it swings across and those areas back into southeast Texas, back into Louisiana again. And then again, it continues to remain unsettled, especially as we head into Saturday with that cool front draping across the south. We are going to have another disturbance that will be moving in. That will cause the atmosphere to overrun itself and produce more heavy rain for those areas into Texas, into Oklahoma, into Arkansas, back into Louisiana again, likely during the day on Saturday. And then there's even Sunday could continue to remain high, elevated with those more heavier rains moving back in the picture for the south and much of the central plain. So if we move through, here's the latest European guidance on the surface map. So you can see the big picture on what we're talking about. So here it is this morning. We've got the area of low pressure center highlighted across the Dakotas, moving northward into Minnesota, spreading some light showers. There's the activity further south with that convective complex with all the heavier lightning further south into southeast Texas, into Louisiana. And then we move across and move through the rest of Monday, heading into Tuesday morning. You can see the heavier rains move through areas of Tennessee, through Kentucky, and then swing with that first system into the East Coast. And then, of course, we'll be watching that second convective complex that will likely bring a renewed severe threat over Iowa, those areas in the northwestern portions of Missouri, as well as into Kansas again during the evening time frame on Tuesday. That will move out, and that will just set up another event, the dry line event, with the low pressure center highlighted across Colorado again. And then that puts the activation along the dry line in West Texas, Western Oklahoma, Western Kansas. That will bring a renewed threat for severe storms and more unsettled light conditions. And then there's the Thursday setup with more heavy rain moving back in the picture as this slow moving cool front will two areas of low pressure center, highlighted, across areas of here, and then right into West Texas, and that puts all the lift. You got extreme amount of lift coming out from the Gulf of Mexico, and that's going to set the stage for that heavier rain threat as we head into Thursday. And then if we continue to move across, you can see it continues to remain fairly unsettled even into Friday across those areas of southeast Texas, Louisiana, Western Tennessee, back into Illinois again, as well as into Wisconsin. We'll have that area of low pressure center move out into Canada. And then as we head into the weekend, we are going to be seeing that cold front move through, that cool front that's coming from the west. That will set the stage for a boundary further south and will bring a renewed threat for more heavy rains for the south as we head into Saturday, with that one convective complex across the East Coast, and finally coming back in the picture with more rain for those areas across the East Coast. But that won't likely be until Saturday for this upcoming weekend. You can see it continues to remain unsettled even as we get into Sunday. So if we take a look at the overall temperatures and break down the temperatures for you, it's very warm. In fact, I think today DC is going to hit like 90 degrees up there in the Northeast, well above average, with that ridge building up there into the Northeast. Look what the cooler anomalies are. That's going to be those areas out west in the Northwest. That's where the cool front will be coming in. So there's Tuesday. We got the warm sector across the middle of the country, and it continues to remain warm across the middle of the country. And obviously with this cool front back out to the northwest and clashing with that temperature gradient, that's going to be one of the culprits, is going to bring out severe storms across the middle part of the country. And I think it continues that and continues to remain warm. And you can see the cooler anomalies will stay out northwest even through that Thursday time frame for much of the areas through northwest, those areas into Nevada, back into Utah there. And it's not really until Friday as the cold front will try to advance a little bit further south that interacts with that other disturbance that will be moving across the south, and that will provide renewed lift with additional development even into the weekend. But overall, mainly the central and eastern 2/3 of the US are going to remain on the warmer side really for the rest of the week and continue to remain unsettled. So if we break down the overall precipitation over the next 7 days, you can obviously see where the dry slot is, as much of those areas into California, Nevada, Utah, areas of Arizona, New Mexico kind of misses out on this deal. You won't get much of anything. Not until areas into the north, we have these little short waves that will be moving across, but it's really highlighted across the central part of the US. That's where all the instability, that's where all the heavier rains, those reds imply easily 2 to 4 inches of rain throughout the week. No question about it. And those lighter amounts will be swinging east, as we head into the rest of the week. But overall, some rains come back for the East Coast. But overall, it's the central US is where the main instability is going to be for the rest of the week. Well, so I appreciate you guys watching. Make sure to like this video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and catch me next update where I protect you before and after the storm.